going to just hit a couple of questions quickly and then we can do that. Yeah. So one of the recent comments that I haven't commented back on was one of our members wants 2x his monthly passive income or note fees in 2025. And it really wasn't a question there, but just more of he was saying he has inventory, just needs to sell it. A few observations there. One thing that we do, we keep a running track on our inventory and how much it would be if we were to sell it all on terms based on what we're asking for. So we have 5 properties and we're all asking $500 a month. Obviously, that's the potential to bring in 2,500 in a monthly note payment, or we could sell it for cash. But we do that similarly to what Jeff Casey was asking, in that if we have a target of 5,000, growing our loan book by 5,000 a month over a certain period of time, then we'll know, okay, we have enough inventory or we don't, or we need to chase more. So it's a way to back into the goal. And I think Jeff also made a comment that I'll hit here in a second about if there are better suited counties for cash sales versus monthly payments. And short answer is no. I don't think in that way. It really comes down to how we incentivize buyers. And we give discounts if people want to buy on cash. And so there's a way to make one side of the equation more appealing than the other in terms of the discount that's offered. I would say it probably more so than counties. It's about the channels that maybe you're using. Facebook Marketplace is just a huge mix of people, but more premium channels, realtors, for instance, and or the paid services might tend to attract a different buyer profile, somebody that's up for cash. But as far as selling properties for cash, it really comes down to that. We know people that only sell cash, they won't do terms. And so that's one way to do it. You have a smaller number of buyers, but then it really comes down to paying attention to where you're marketing. So it's people that go through realtors usually have their own financing or are thinking in that direction, that we have had some realtors ask us if we do monthly payments, and sometimes we don't start out that way, and we'll see if we can get a cash buyer. And if it doesn't sell in a month, then we might say, okay, we're open to entertain we'll carry the note. And then there's also a wholesale marketplace where things happen on cash. It's for less. You really have to make sure you're buying the property deep enough discount to be able to do that. And yeah, cash versus owner financing terms just really is an art, but there's a little bit of manipulation that can happen as well, right? Just based on how much you're pricing. One thing we also try to do is just straight up ask people how much they can pay on a monthly basis. We may be advertising $350 a month, but some people will discount the price, the total price, if somebody wants to pay it off in 1 year or 2 years versus 5, because it's cash flow, it's money today. It's time value of money type mentality. So there are different ways to manipulate the sale, but at the same time, a lot of times the marketplace dictates what they're willing to pay for something. And it really comes down to those two levers in terms of tweaking whether it's going to be a cash sale or a term sale. So that kind of hits those two questions. I wanted to make sure we covered those since he had thrown those out in the group. This portion really would be just more of an open Q&A. I don't know, Remington, if you have enough time in the content to have questions at this point, or anything in particular we want to hit.
Yeah, sure. So on the inventory part, so I was just thinking about this, us coming up, and then also going through a couple of the people in the group, going to their websites and just seeing like how they have inventory listed on. Let's say there's a homeowner that has 2 acres, they want to sell it. I'll say $20,000 is what they have it listed for. Let's say I talk to them and I'm like, hey, I want to get this. This is what I do, blah, blah, blah. Can we be like a contractor in a sense? Say I don't necessarily go buy that from them I offer them 10,000. They say yes. But if I do say, hey, if I want to get this sold for you do we not need to carry the note right at first? Is there a way to leverage? Okay, they're saying I can buy this for 10. I'm going to go advertise it and put it on my website as inventory 15. And when someone comes and says, hey, I'll buy that, great. So I give the homeowner the 10, I get the 5, the new person comes in and owns it. Or do we always right off the bat? I know it's best probably just to purchase it and we own it, but can we float that like that?
100%. Yeah. It's definitely a little bit personal preference. Yeah. So there are different ways, just like there are in the single family arena, right? You can get something under a purchase agreement with, if you agree with the current owner, hey, give me a 90-day purchase agreement. I'm going to work to sell this in the meantime.
Yeah.
That can certainly be done. The way you described it is another way. Yeah, it's as creative as you want to be. We're really just dealing with most of the time individual owners. And so it's understanding their motivation. Do they need to sell today? Are they okay to float it? It's really as creative as you can be. The only
Okay.
caveat I'll make is what you described touches the gray area of being a broker. You're like, and this is where licensed real estate agents are licensed for a reason because they broker a sale, a buyer and a seller. And so, you might explore each state's a little bit different in their regulations and how tightly they control that or not.
Okay.
And so it might be worth, spending a little bit of time before you do things because it may, I'm not really familiar with every state, how that works. And you would need to perhaps, word things to protect a certain arrangement or not. That's the only caveat I would add is that it enters a tricky area where,
Yeah, that makes
you know,
sense.
unless you have a broker's license and then it's all good to go. But then, yeah, with I guess there's this NAR and all that kind of stuff. But
Right.
yeah, that's the only caveat. But ultimately, I know a lot of people who do float purchase agreements and double close or different things. It's just a matter of making sure you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's on that. But it's a good way. Since we've started, we just purely buy things. We
Yeah.
we buy it and sell it and flip it, and it has worked well. But I know people that do a lot of that purchase agreement floating, or they agree with the seller. Hey, let me line up a buyer before we schedule the closing.
Yeah. A lot of this for me right now is just going off of purely where my property is in small rural town.
Yeah,
And so that's just where a lot of my questions are coming from. As like you said, as I learn the content and everything, I'll obviously expand my horizons there. But this is just purely based off of me knowing Joe over in my small town that he's got the 3 acres and he doesn't want two of them. So hey Joe, I'll put it on my website and sell it for you type thing.
yeah.
And my other one is same, comes out of the same mindset. And since we're on tax season here, do you guys run a lot of tax sale purchases or have you found success in that? Or that's how I acquired my property was at the county courthouse the morning when they auction off all the people who are late on their taxes on their properties. So is that a successful option for you that you've
It is. Yeah, it is. It's also one where you have to, at the state level, if not the county level, understand their processes because here in Colorado, there's like a 7-year wait period. If you buy a property on a tax lien, you have to wait 7 years before you can do anything with it or even put it in your name, I think, officially. The person that has the lien against the property has the right to come back at some point, pay off their taxes, and they take the property back. And in some of the markets that we work here, it's just really not advantageous. We don't want to hold on to a property that long. We
Yeah.
don't really want to sell it on terms with the that there's something might happen down there. But
Yeah.
there are other markets where it is more open. In a lot of Utah and Arizona and New Mexico, I think there's a lot more favorable tax lien setups. You just have to understand what the law of the land is, and then it opens up definitely some opportunities there. They have when did you buy your property?
9 years ago?
Yeah, and that sounds about right. I mean, over that's about when we started inland, and over the years, just like with homes, it's gotten a bit more
Yeah.
competitive. Counties are figuring out if they put their stuff on a digital platform, they get a lot more bidding and they can do some things. So it gets a bit tighter, but yeah, it's a good avenue to pursue for sure.
Along with kind of on those same lines. So my property's in an HOA gated community in the
Mhm.
mountain, got 1,200 lots. And then right next to us is another one. And then down over the other mountain is another one. What some of these people haven't, and this is again gated, it's recreational, or you can live there. And ever since COVID, they've been selling, they used to sell maybe 5 or 10 a year. Now they're selling 20 or 30, 40 a year. What you're able to do is I can go to the county right now and I can get a map of who owns every property in there, from Joe to John to Jane to Larry. And I can also get a list of who is behind on their taxes and what's going to go up this year. And I can contact those people and say, hey, I see the taxes haven't been used. Because so what I've learned, and again, just coming from my situation, some of these people were handed down this property. They don't even live in the state. Some of the people just stopped using it. The husband died or this or that or whatever. And they just really don't care and they forgot about it or whatever that case may be. Now, luckily, just going back to mine, I can ride around in my four-wheeler throughout the whole mountainside, and I can tell who's been there in the last couple years or not. You can see
Yeah.
who's been. So I can easily contact I can write down, okay, lot 485 definitely hasn't been used. Lot 790, definitely not. And then I can compare, I can get their name information, send out letters, make phone calls. One, if they are on the tax sale, they might not even know, and I can inform them and say, and they're like, I can say, hey, I'll buy it from you now so it doesn't go out under you at this discounted rate, or not even say discount. I'll just say, I can buy it for it from you, this or whatever it may be. But you see where I'm going
Yep.
with it as far
Yeah.
as that seems like something I could, like you say, I'm doing this full time now. So I'm trying to book up a 5 to 7, 8 hour day of doing things. And so this is
Yeah.
just popping into my head of something that I know that is a way that to do it, at least in my local market.
No, it's a great strategy. If you can get your hands on the contact information for those people, especially the tax delinquent ones, or the ones that are coming up. In parallel, I don't know what the HOA policy is, but we've been in some markets where HOA dues collect and people get behind on those. And it's a great lever to be able to work with people. Let's say somebody owes $1,000 in taxes and they're not going to be able to pay it. The county's just going to take their land. And so you could, at the best case, just say, I'll pay your taxes and let me take your land. I'll pay your taxes and you're net good. Or you can sweeten the pot and say, I'll even give you, $50 or $1,000 or whatever. And it's a great way to work that. We've been in a few markets like that. And the only thing I would say is really just understand the HOA policy, because we were in a market where everybody was willing to sell their property. And once we dug in, the HOA dues collected back, they accrued back HOA dues,
Yeah.
and they weren't waiving them for new buyers. If you buy the property, you inherit the
Yeah.
back HOA dues. And in a lot of cases, they were more than the value of the property for us. And so that was one of our early explorations. But it's a great strategy because, yeah, you can really have an honest conversation with people and say, look, the county's going to take your land. You're going to get nothing. I'll if the business if the math works, if a property's worth $5,000 and the taxes are 49.99 or whatever, if the business case is there, you could certainly work a deal with someone.
And not to muddy the waters, but there's also this is a great strategy, but there's also tax season is coming up. People get those tax bills, and even if they're not delinquent, a lot of people get motivated to sell the land, especially they're not invested emotionally in their properties. They inherited it or they're not even living close by. And in our experience in the tax season, there's a lot of motivated sellers.
Yeah, it's fresh. They're
It's
like, these
yes,
taxes
it's
again.
like
I got to pay them.
once a year you get the invoices and it reminds you again, oh, again, and I have to pay it. So that's another strategy as well.
I think in our state, it's 3 years delinquent is when it goes up. On the fourth year is when they put it up. Not that numbers matter here specifically, but just since for the sake of the conversation, my property taxes are like $100 a year, and my HOA is $60 for 2 acres. So that's a nice part. Anyways, the HOA didn't waive it or the taxes. That's the crazy part. The taxes on it would be so cheap, but it's more like you say, finding those people that don't live by. I met somebody last year up on the mountain that their kids just love the sand dunes. They hate the mountains. They love the sand dunes and the beach. They're like, come here. And so they're just putting it up for sale.
Yeah, I would say let's target, if you can get your hands on the list and it has contact information, that's great. If not, we can certainly help. Usually you can identify neighborhoods in these list services, and we'd be able to dial in, grab a list as well. But it would be a great, it sounds like a great little spot. We have one of these in Colorado where gated community, HOA, it's a lot of 2-acre lots and things. And we've had a lot of good luck over the years. We don't buy too many because we don't want to get saddled with a lot of HOA dues. It is difficult because it's a gated community. And so
Yeah.
we found someone who's a realtor that lives in the community, and we usually just partner with them and say, hey, if you'll show, if people want to come look at the lot or something, it's, I don't know, probably 3-hour drive for us or something. So it's just not practical for us to be doing. We don't want to be doing that anyway. But yeah, those are great little spots because a combination of dues and taxes. Yeah. A lot of people, like you just said, mom and dad bought it. Mountains were their thing. It's not my thing. Yeah. They're looking to just get out and get some cash. And
Cool. I think that's a good, as I go and get into this here, and it's just somewhere I can at least, I have a little bit of not net experience and tiny bit of knowledge. And I was thinking the same thing. I know local realtors there that are my friends. I lived it. So I had my property for 9 years. I lived there for 2 full summers, about 5.5, 6 months each. And I worked at the hardware store down in town. It took me about 20 minutes to ride down there on my 4-wheeler. And it's the only hardware store with 60 miles of 4 towns. And so everyone came there. And so like I made friends with everyone. So I've got a little bit of a little niche in that town and know people. And it's just a little starter for me as we get into it. But I'm sure as we do the more one-on-one and stuff, I'm learn about how to start looking
yeah,
vast.
love that.
But what I had right now, not too much more. I'm starting to watch the videos.
Yeah, get a couple modules in, and then next week we can plug something on the calendar and have a kickoff, and we can either include, I don't know, if you and the Carlsons want to meet offline and talk about a few of those budgetary and things, or if we all just get together and plow through it or whatever, however works best for you guys. We're certainly open to it, or whatever works best. But that's the foundation, is just really understanding what parameters we're
Yeah.
scoping in on, and then we can help collaborate and steer you guys into some good markets.
Okay. Awesome. And I haven't had a chance to even talk to them. Kevin, he came down with a bug, a flu or something. So he's been sick, but he just said, hey, look out for this email. Once you get it, start running. And I was like, okay, sounds good. And like I say, looking on the portal and seeing the community. So would you suggest for us, do we need to get branding going, a name, a website, all that stuff ASAP, or is it do what I'm doing right now and that stuff will flow here in the next few weeks leading up to a month? Or should I be saying, hey, Kevin, what do you guys want to name this? And then me building a website, like what's the flow there?
Yeah, it's not an A priority item. I mean, you guys can do this personally or whatever. We can also talk about this if we have a group call,
Okay.
because I don't know if they're going to keep the legacy LLC that they have and use that, or if they, those are some decisions that I guess they're going to have to make in terms of how they want to structure. If it's because it can be done personally, you can buy, they can buy, whatever. But I'm imagining they're going to want to make something a little more official if they don't just leverage what they already have. But yeah, those are definitely questions I would throw to them a little bit. But it's not the more urgent thing is just picking a market and getting some offers out there. And then that stuff can be done in parallel, and it's going to take a few weeks for things to go out, and then a week or two for things to come back. And so all that can be set up in parallel, even after it can be transferred into a different organization or something. I would say it's important to understand and probably get things stabilized, but it's definitely not the A priority. I would say more just digest the material, especially on the acquisition side. And then we just need to set a few sessions together to work through some homework on getting a market dialed in, a method, even if it's mailers, calls, whatever. And then just getting that started first.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm sure I believe, if I remember correctly, there's templates to use for letters and things like that. And I'm sure once I
Yeah.
dive deeper, I'll find all that. But
Yeah. With each module, there's files associated and you can download all those and stuff. But if not, shoot me a text or an email. And we've worked with a few clients offline where I can tell they're not really grabbing this stuff. And they're like, hey, do you have a contract or whatever? It's not a big deal.
I just have dove into it but I'll be in it either on it tonight or tomorrow. I just
Sounds
stumbled.
good, man.
So
Right on.
cool.
Good to see you hang in there. And yeah, just go through some stuff and then we'll put our heads together and get things rolling.
All right. Sounds good. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And we'll talk soon.
All right, later.
Okay.
Bye.
Have a
Yes.
good evening.
Thank you as well.